Confirmation bias shapes how we receive information long before we ever begin to analyze it. In this episode, we explore why being challenged feels uncomfortable, why false stories spread faster than true ones, and why awareness, not more information, may be the key to better public discourse. I'm James Newcomb, and that's what I meant to say.
Want to hear a fun fact? Studies show we spend up to 30% more time analyzing information that challenges our beliefs compared to information that confirms them, and we don't even realize we're doing it. This is a phenomenon known as confirmation bias.
That's fascinating. It makes me wonder how much of his actual analysis versus unconsciously working to protect our existing worldview.
You're really onto something there. In fact, a recent study from Harvard reveals that even when people are explicitly told about this confirmation bias phenomenon, they still rate themselves as less biased than the average person.
Well, that's evidence of confirmation bias right there, isn't it? It certainly helps explain why social media debates get so heated so quickly.
Agreed. And speaking of social media, yet another MIT study found that false news stories spread 6 times faster than true ones online, largely because they confirm what people want to believe. It reminds me of a saying I once heard. I think it's attributed to Winston Churchill, but I could be wrong. The saying is, a lie will make it clear across town before the truth can get its pants on.
Haha, that's so true. It makes me wonder about how these biases might have developed with us humans over time. Perhaps there was an advantage to quick pattern recognition.
Well, that's what a group of researchers at Stanford found. Confirmation bias likely evolved as a survival mechanism. When our ancestors needed to make quick decisions about threats, better to err on the side of confirming your suspicions than spending too much time gathering evidence.
That makes sense, although I imagine that same basic instinct can become problematic in our modern information environment.
You know what's interesting about confirmation bias? The higher level of education someone has, the more susceptible they are to confirmation bias. They're more adept at constructing arguments to support their existing beliefs. And here's where it gets even more complex. Neuroscience research shows that when we encounter information that challenges our most deeply held beliefs, it activates the same brain regions as physical pain.
So you're telling me that being proven wrong literally hurts?
I am. And this explains why simply presenting facts won't do a lick of good in changing people's minds. A 2019 study found that when presented with contradictory evidence, people actually doubled down on their original beliefs about 70% of the time.
And that's why we don't discuss politics at the dinner table.
I suppose you're right. But you know what's interesting is when someone expresses a deeply held belief that seems extreme, but when you ask that same person just a few questions about their beliefs, they tend to become less extreme in their views. This is what is called the illusion of explanatory depth.
Like when you think you understand how a bicycle works until someone asks you to explain every part.
Precisely. And this might be our best tool against confirmation bias. It will never go away. It's a part of our innate nature as human beings. But we can create moments of pause that make us question our own certainty.
So what practical steps can people take to combat their own confirmation bias?
Well, being aware of it in the first place is a good start. But beyond that, you could begin by actively seeking out information that challenges your views. But here's the key. Do so when you're not emotionally charged about the topic.
That makes sense. You're basically creating a mental environment where you can actually process new information.
I would say it's more of an emotional environment than mental. We humans are driven by emotion. Yet when arguing a point, we all too often focus on the intellect, i.e., the facts of the matter, and completely ignore the emotional element of our argument. And timing matters too. There have been studies conducted which indicate we're most open to contradictory information in the morning, before this other phenomenon called decision fatigue sets in.
You know, I've heard attorneys say they hope and pray they'll get their cases heard earlier in the day because judges tend to be more lenient. When they're close to lunchtime, that same judge just wants to shut down and retreat to safety.
It sounds like you may have had some bad experience with the courts, but you're on to something there. You may have heard about this concept of playing devil's advocate, meaning intentionally bringing a dissenting view into an argument. This is actually effective in confronting this confirmation bias because we are simply forced to consider another view, even if we are 100% we disagree with it.
That's interesting, although I imagine it's not always comfortable being that person who challenges the group consensus.
Actually, there are people who thrive on being, quote, that guy, unquote. But that's for a different podcast. This is why workplaces will actually assign someone to be the devil's advocate in important meetings. They've found it leads to better decision-making and helps prevent groupthink.
Groupthink? Is that another phenomenon we haven't discussed?
Yes.
Are we going to discuss it?
Do you want to?
Only if it will confirm my preconceived biases.
Quit being cheeky. This is a serious discussion.
Okay, Professor. So if I understand you correctly, the real challenge isn't eliminating this confirmation bias, but being aware of it and building systems that will help us work around it.
Yes, you understand it correctly. It's about creating structures that acknowledge our cognitive limitations instead of pretending they don't exist.
That actually gives me a bit of hope, the idea that understanding our limitations might be the first step to overcoming them.
And that might be the real lesson here. In a world of increasing polarization, I don't think we need more information, but better awareness of how we process the information we have and continue to receive.
That's a great way to end our time together. And, Professor?
Yes.
I'm sorry for being cheeky.
See you tomorrow.
Hey, thanks for listening to or watching today's episode. I really appreciate it. You can follow me on the web at jamesdnewcomb.com and hear what I have to say on topics such as music, religion, history, and much more. There's no shortage of ideas in this world. The challenge is learning how to listen for the ones that matter. I like to think some of mine are among those that matter. Again, visit jamesdnewcomb.com and be part of this important work, broadcasting consciously from the outskirts of relevance.